Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So, okay, so I got that fixed. You guys can hear me now, I hope. Hello, Mary, TD, just making sure. Sorry about the little snafu. I'm not sure why the sound didn't go on. But what I was basically saying is there aren't a whole lot of reports coming out right now. So as such, I'm going to focus on some of the economic data that came out, as well as this nonsense with regards to China that the IMF, International Monetary Fund chief, is wanting to lift China's ranking in a report. Now, keep in mind, folks, right now, China is as much as people think China is a strong economy. It's not as strong as people think. And the reason why I say that is, unless something has drastically changed in the past couple of years, they need foreign currency to fund their operations on their soil. What do I mean by that? Well, if China wanted to hand out yuan to, for example, to Australia or to the Middle East and purchase raw materials, oil in particular, they can't. Okay, they don't take their money because they don't really view it as a safe type of thing. Over 90% of China's trade is done in currencies other than the Chinese yuan. So that goes to show you what the capital markets think about China. They don't trust them, and rightfully so. And so China, in order to fund purchases of other things from global market participants, they need hard currency. What is hard currency? That means they need euros, they need yen, they need US dollars. So they need to sell us their junk. We got to give them our dollars, or Europe has to give them euros. And then they can then use our currency to go buy the raw materials. But people know better to not use their currency, right? And so what I would say is, when you see this nonsense where they're trying to integrate China into the global system even more by this corrupt International Monetary Fund, it's a joke. And I think that if you think about it, some reason we have horrible people here in the United States in Congress that are morons. I'm going to just call them what they are, folks. They're morons. They allowed China to use our capital markets to fleece American investors by having these Chinese companies go public on U.S. exchanges. So even though there's no set of accounting, they don't live by the same regulatory framework, the same accounting rules as American companies, yet we allowed them to take out literally north of $1 trillion, supposedly. I'm not sure if that's all hard cash, but I know that $1 trillion of valuation has been of companies that China has listed on the U.S. exchanges. And what I would say to that is, these idiots in Congress that allowed this to happen, and to allow pension funds from the United States as well as our military apparatus. So think about this. We're allowing people, because of corrupt deals that are in our military, to purchase emerging market funds, which include Chinese stocks, when they're trying to destroy our country from within. And they're building up their military with the money that they get. And a lot of these companies are nothing more than front companies for the CCP's military. Absolutely insanity. Absolutely insane that this would ever happen. And in fact, we need to reverse it as quickly as possible. And I think we're in the middle of reversing it. So with that, it's a good transition to some of the economic data that's come out. So let's take a look at the economic data. All right. We're going to go here and go on a second. Oh, boy. That was kind of weird, huh? Okay, so we're going to go to the economic calendar here. And you can see, hold on. It should be here. Why is it stuck? Okay, there we go. So right here, today is the 16th. Okay. And the initial jobless came in pretty much as expected. Nothing major there, 332. But what is a good sign is this retail sales number. It came in at 0.7 versus an estimate of negative 0.7. That's a 1.4% swing. That's not insignificant, folks. This is a massive economy. So this is, once again, this is on an annualized basis, but a 1.4% swing on retail sales, is probably it could be about $7 to $8 billion. I think is what the number is. It's a pretty big deal. So then retail sales ex autos is even better. Came in 1.6 versus 1.4 stronger. The manufacturing survey came in very strong as well. 30.7 versus 18.9. And so these are all super positive signs that are taking place in the United States. And I can't stress it enough that as we're kind of going through this rebalance of sorts, that that people are starting to bring manufacturing back onto U.S. soil, that we are cutting off the funding of an evil empire 2.0. I'm going to call China the evil empire 2.0. That's what it is. It's the new and improved version of the Soviet Union, folks. We need to stop sugarcoating it. China, the CCP, is evil. They have turned in, they've bribed officials, not just in the U.S. Congress, officials across this country, state legislatures, local governments. The CCP is a criminal operation. Might as well call it the Criminal Communist Party. That's what they are. And so us finally recognizing it as a nation and pulling away from doing business with them until this regime collapses and enters the ash heap of history, I think is a very wise move. And I'm very hopeful that this does continue to play out in the direction it's moving. I know Bolshevik Biden, who knows how all that's going to play out. I'm hopeful that America will make the right decisions and that we will decouple significantly. It's like we're undergoing a divorce, folks. We were in a very abusive relationship, is what I would say. The abusive relationship was to fund a partner that did everything behind our backs to undermine us, undermine our schools, our K through 12. Red for Ed comes to mind. Our university system with Confucian institutes, with regards to hollowing out our manufacturing sector across all the small towns of America. Folks, do you think that was a coincidence? Or do you think it makes sense to drive as many companies out of business across small town farming communities in this country prior to purchasing farmland? Do you think the farmland was cheaper or more expensive after you destroy 60,000 companies in small town America? I mean, let's just use some common sense, folks. This was a very deceptive, evil plan that not just China was in on, but there was other players that are just as evil on U.S. soil and global players that have done this to us. And that's the reality, folks. So we have a cleanup in aisle, I guess, America, right? We'll call it cleanup in aisle America. And right now the cleanup is occurring. And I am hopeful that more and more people are recognizing this fact. We should not do any business with any nation that mistreats its citizens. And frankly, I think we should cut off doing business with nations that hold women down. Why is a burqa around for 600 years in some of these countries, and we buy product from them? They basically violate their women's rights. They don't let them get educated. They don't let them participate in economic freedom and mobility in their economy. And my attitude is the West, the women of the West should unite and cut them off. Don't give them any of our damn money until they let women's faces be seen. Okay, that's the deal. And this whole nonsense, it's part of the culture, is a joke. They did this because hundreds of years ago, 500-600 years ago, 1,000 years ago, look into it for yourself. They wanted the kings and the sheiks, or whatever the hell you want to call these losers. They didn't want any men to see the women. And that's why they put these insane, barbaric practices into place. And we should not do business with any nation state that violates women's rights. And I'm talking about the markets here, folks. So people are like, Bobby, what are you talking about? Investing. Because all this stuff is tied together. How we invest our money as a society, who we do business with. We need to start living our values. And so you need to do that if you really want to create the change in the world that we want to see. So you know what? You got all these green beans trying to push this false narrative about global warming, whatever, I happen to disagree with the science that they're using in the math, but that's after me looking at the data. Everybody else has got to make their own decision, but that's why we should have at least the freedom to discuss these things. Let people misprove or basically prove me wrong on the data that I'm looking at, and I'm more than happy to take a look at it. But all I'm saying is, if these green beans can make their argument, I'm making my argument for social / economic justice. We should not do business with any nation that violates the United States Constitution. There, I said it publicly. Any nation state that violates our core values as a nation, the United States Constitution, we should not do business with them. It should be very, very limited. We should say, you know what? You don't let your citizens speak freely? Sorry. You don't, and once again, now look at what we're doing. Because we didn't take that stance, we're reaping what we sowed. We allowed other nation states, we did business with them that violated our constitutional rights. And now they infected our society like a virus and are violating our constitutional rights. That's what we're fighting. We're fighting that battle because we didn't focus on making sure that we only did business with nations that followed common sense and our God-given rights to be free. Anyways, that's the deal. We need to publicize that list of countries. Anyways, I got my list and I'm checking it twice. I sound like Santa Claus. I'm just joking around. But I do have that list. But I'm not publicly buying. I'm not purchasing any companies in any of these nation states that do this nonsense, because it's horrible. It's kind of like saying, you know what, I'm going to save for retirement, Bobby. I want to help me out here. I want to save for retirement, and meanwhile we're investing in things that are saving for your retirement, and then some of those companies may try to figure out how to kill you so that you don't live as long in retirement. And I'd be like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. Why you're trying to put money to work in these companies that are trying to figure out how to have my retirement end a little prematurely? It's insane. And the same holds true for dealing with nations that we shouldn't be doing business with, is the argument that I would make. And so that's that. So in terms of, we talked about the rates, we talked about this nonsense with the IMF. U.S. workers are earning $15 an hour without much of a fight. That whole minimum wage thing, we talked about that before. You used to be able to buy a barrel of oil in 1971. It cost you about $3.20 a barrel, okay? And now oil, I think oil has got to be about $65 a share. I mean, $65. What's it? A little more, maybe 70. So let's take a look here. Brent, actually, it's about $75. So I want you to think about this number for a second. If it's 72 to 75, depending on what type of oil it is, minimum wage in 1971 was $1.65, folks. So you only had to work 2 hours of minimum wage earnings. You work 2 hours and you get to hug a 40-gallon barrel of oil. You get to own one barrel of oil that's worth $72 today. So what's 72 divided by 2? 36. So guess what? Productivity in this country has skyrocketed in the past 40, 50 years. And in fact, it's more than quadrupled. Okay? So that means that if we had no inflation, you should have had the buying power of about 4 times as much as that $1.60. So you should have been at over $6. What would that be? $1.65. So you're talking $3.30. It'd be at least $6.60 per hour. So that means that if it quadrupled, the price of oil you would be working 2 hours minimum wage. If we kept our productivity gains, folks, you would have the equivalent of about four barrels of oil versus a half a barrel per hour worked. It's actually two. Yeah. So I take that back. So if our productivity quadrupled and we were able to get 1/2 of a barrel of oil per hour worked today, we should get at least 2 full barrels, because 0.5 times 4 is 2. So if we get 2 full barrels of oil, that means 1 full barrel of oil is what minimum wage would be on a purchasing parity basis back to 1971. So minimum wage should be about $72 an hour. That's the reality, folks. If minimum wage is kept up with our technological improvements and we did not debase the money supply of this country via the Federal Reserve, the average minimum wage worker in America would be making about $72 an hour. Somewhere there's been some overhead, folks. So if you want to know where all your money went, not just all of our money, all this went, it got siphoned off by the Federal Reserve. It got siphoned off by a bunch of criminals. Economic criminals is what has happened. And all I'm saying is we have an opportunity, possibly, we'll see what happens, to go back to sound money at the appropriate time and fix this nonsense, because they're literally debasing our labor. When you don't spend what you make and you decide to save it and invest it, but they keep the clock going where they chip away 2% or more of the value of all your assets, they're literally stealing that much money. Let me say that again. If you're an American, you did the right thing. You saved up $1 million. And you're like, Bobby, I got $1 million. I saved it up. I worked my whole life. I did a great job. And the Federal Reserve, this criminal organization, says, Bobby, we're gonna inflate the money supply 2% a year. We're gonna print. We're gonna keep printing. So right out of the gate, if you don't do anything, you just want to sit and look at your cash, you lose $20,000 a year. $20,000 per million. They're taking from you. So should you be upset? You're damn right you should be upset. You'd be like, what the hell are you guys thinking you're doing? And the fact that they're doing that, $1 million here, 20 grand. Somebody worth 5 million, they take away 100 grand. You guys get the idea here. They're literally stealing all the work of your past years. That's what inflation is. It's a tax on what you did in the past. And it's stealing all of the things that you did to make good decisions. It's peeling off your good decisions from how you made economic decisions, and you sacrificed or you forego consumption. And then these scumbags at the Federal Reserve think it's their money. And this is what we're up against, because we have an incompetent Congress who has been part of this scam, because they get their $100,000 birthday parties like Commie Crenshaw in Texas. Who funds that $100,000 birthday party? Folks, I looked at the FEC reports. You guys, you want to look at some interesting reading, there's some kind of damn super PAC that's paid, I think Crenshaw, I say paid, right? They donated over $400,000, I think, from Athens, Georgia, right? 400 grand this year alone. And then I think there's some other politicians here in Illinois. I started looking at them. Same thing, hundreds of thousands of dollars from this damn super PACs in Georgia. So you want to sit there and think about, why are we getting ripped off? Because we allowed this insane stuff to take root in our political system. We need to end this nonsense and restore this country to being controlled and run by the American people, not these scumbags that are overseas hiding, don't even pay the damn bill. They don't even pay the taxes, folks. That's what's going on. They take all the power without paying for any of it. They don't even want to pay for it, right? That's the thing. They don't even want to pay for the power that they yield or wield, I guess. You could say they wield the power in our system. They don't even want to pay for that. And come up with creative ways to bribe these suckers or get them in compromising situations with young kids, I guess. You know, that seems to be the bribery and extortion of sorts that seems to spill over into these insane politicians. But anyways, that's what's going on. So I'm off my soapbox, folks. Nothing really going on in the markets like we talked about. We talked about China. The economy is picking up. Markets are kind of flattish today. I will say that we talked about gold yesterday and we talked about silver yesterday. And if you look, I did say that, metals, you got to be careful because right now, if we look at gold, I said if there's no inflation and inflation's coming in, gold is going to get popped. And if you look here, gold is down 2% today, almost down $4. Now, I have no opinion, folks, about buying gold, selling gold. I don't know if it's going higher. I'm not keeping track of which way the frog's going to jump. But all I'm telling you is, wow, silver's down 4% today. So, folks, the news came out yesterday, okay? The news came out yesterday with regards to inflation. I said it's not as bad as people thought. And I said that, if you think about it, if everybody's kind of hiding, they're hiding in the metals because they think we're going to inflate everything away indefinitely. You got to be careful. You got to be careful because sometimes the market is a little smarter than all of us. It can kind of sense and see things coming before everybody else because the market system is the collective intelligence of all the participants. Once again, that's assuming it isn't rigged. As long as the market isn't rigged and you don't have false signals, it's a wonderful thing to collect the wisdom of the crowds. There's a great book about this. It's actually called The Wisdom of the Crowds. I highly recommend the book. You should check it out. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you soon. Thank you. God bless. By the way, God bless. So even though I know that just pisses off all these communists that might be listening, yes, I hope God blesses you and you have peace in your life. Amen.